At my fiancé's 35th birthday dinner, the woman I believed he loved pinned my wrist to the table while he told everyone not to worry. By morning, Summer won't remember any of this. The private room went quiet, except for the rain tapping the windows. Graham Voss sat at the head of the table, one hand around my wrist and the other clenched beside his plate. Beyond him, the Seattle skyline glittered against black water. The guests were old friends, early investors, and executives from Stillwater, the digital archive company Graham and I had started in a rented garage 12 years ago. The woman beside me held a paper medicine cup filled with cloudy apple juice. I knew her as Claire Dawson. Claire had been Graham's first love. She was the woman in his college photographs, the one whose return to Seattle had apparently become more important than my dignity. "Open your mouth," she said. "No, you asked me to help you take it. I have never asked you for anything." Her face tightened. "Summer, please don't turn this into another fight." I looked at Graham. "Tell her to let go." He glanced at the executives around us. Stillwater was scheduled to begin trading publicly in 3 weeks. For months, lawyers and publicists had warned us that a scene involving one of the company's co-founders could become a headline before dessert. Graham lowered his voice. "You missed the last 2 doses. This is the medication Dr. Patel prescribed. Then you drink it. Summer." Claire pushed the cup toward my lips. One of our former engineers stood halfway from his chair. "Graham, is this really okay?" That was when Graham said I would forget by morning. He meant it as reassurance for the room. I heard permission. Claire tipped the cup. I jerked my head aside, and apple juice ran down the front of my blue dress. A few guests looked away. Graham released me at once, but he was too late to become innocent. I picked up his glass of sparkling water and poured it over his birthday cake. The candles hissed out. "Now we'll both have something to forget," I said. I took my coat and left before anyone could stop me. Outside, rain silvered the steep street. I walked 3 blocks before realizing I had no idea where I was going. My phone knew. A blue line led me toward a town car waiting at the curb. The driver called me Miss Ellis and opened the rear door as if he had done it many times. There was a card in my coat pocket, laminated and warm from my body. "My name is Summer Ellis. I have young-onset Alzheimer's disease. If I am lost or frightened, call Graham Voss." Below Graham's number was a second one labelled June Park. I did not know anyone named June. On the back, in my own handwriting, I had added one sentence with a red marker. "If Graham tells you not to trust your memory, use the camera." The driver took me to a cedar-sided house above Lake Washington. My key opened the front door. My photographs covered the walls. My shoes were in the closet. Graham's coat hung beside mine, still damp at the shoulders. I'd lived there. Apparently, so did he. Upstairs, a red video camera waited in the bottom drawer of my nightstand. A strip of white tape ran across its battery door. The label read, "For tomorrow's summer." Before Stillwater, I had edited documentary films. I liked continuity, clean time code, and subjects who forgot the camera long enough to tell the truth. After my diagnosis, I turned those habits on myself. The newest file had been recorded at 2:16 that morning. On the screen, I sat exactly where I was sitting now. My hair was tangled and my blue dress was stained with juice. "Graham let Claire hold you down," recorded Summer said. "He told the room you'd forget. You need to leave before he decides. Forgetting means you don't get a vote." She leaned closer to the lens. "Don't let him explain it away." The file ended. I watched it 3 times. Each time, my anger arrived fresh. There were dozens of recent clips. In one, I held up a restaurant receipt for 2 and said Graham had taken Claire to dinner on our anniversary. In another, I showed the camera 2 tickets for a revival of Times, between the lines the movie Graham and I had seen on our first date. "He bought these for her," I whispered on the recording. "He doesn't know I found them." A third video showed an ultrasound image. My recorded voice shook. "I'm pregnant. I haven't told Graham because I think he wants a life with Claire." I paused the frame. The name and date were covered by my thumb, but the crescent of grey light looked undeniable. I was pregnant. Or I had been when I recorded it. I pressed both hands to my abdomen and tried to remember. Nothing came. The bedroom door opened behind me. Graham stood in the mirror. He had changed out of his wetsuit jacket and looked as though he had not slept. A narrow silver band circled his left ring finger. "You came home," he said. "Take that off." He followed my gaze to the ring. "You asked me to wear it. Claire likes ugly silver jewelry. I don't." His face changed, but his hand moved immediately. He slipped off the ring and put it in his pocket. Okay. That obedience frightened me more than an argument would have. "Where is she?" I asked. "Who?" "Don't do that. I'm not trying to upset you. Tell me who you mean. Claire." He closed his eyes for 1 second. "There is no Claire in our life." She was sitting beside me tonight. That was June. "My card says June is safe. You could have printed that yourself." Graham noticed the camera. He did not try to take it. "Will you call Dr. Patel with me?" he asked. "No. Will you let me sleep in the guest room? You own the house. We own it together." He backed toward the hallway. "Lock the door if it helps. I won't come in." When he left, I checked the handle twice. The room contained evidence of a life organized around me. My side of the closet had labels for shirts, pants, and clothes that could be worn together. A whiteboard beside the bathroom mirror listed the date, the weather, and a promise that nobody would enter without knocking. Graham had drawn a terrible cartoon sun beside the forecast. On the nightstand sat a photograph of us eating takeout on the floor of an empty garage. I was holding a paint roller. Graham had a streak of blue paint across his nose and the unguarded smile of someone who had not yet learned to pose for investors. I turned the photograph face down. Then I opened the camera and recorded his gentleness as evidence of how carefully he could lie. At 10 the next morning, I remembered 3 things. Graham had betrayed me. Claire was at Stillwater. I needed proof that did not depend on a damaged brain. The red camera supplied the rest. I took a rideshare to Stillwater's headquarters in South Lake Union. My badge still worked. The receptionist greeted me by name and asked if I wanted someone to walk upstairs with me. "I built the first archive in this building," I said. "You built it in a garage," she corrected gently. I hated her for knowing my own story better than I did. The lobby wall played a silent loop about Stillwater's history. There I was at 24, explaining why family videos should remain searchable even when people forgot dates and file names. Graham stood behind the camera in those early clips. The company had grown out of my obsession with putting stories in order. Now, its facial recognition system identified me before I could identify myself. Graham's office was empty. Through the glass wall of the conference room, I saw Claire arranging folders for a meeting. A tortoiseshell clip held her dark hair off her neck. My clip, I had worn it in a photograph from our kitchen wall. She saw me and froze. "Summer, how did you get here?" "You should ask how quickly you can leave. Graham said you were resting." "Graham says many things when he thinks I won't remember them." I pointed at the clip. "Take it off." She touched her hair and looked close to tears. You gave this to me for my 30th birthday. My 30th birthday was last month. It was 4 years ago. I grabbed for the clip. She caught my forearm and the room tipped sideways. Folders slid from the table. My hip struck a low cabinet before I landed on the carpet. Pain spread across my abdomen. The ultrasound flashed through my mind. My baby. Claire knelt beside me. What baby? Don't touch me. When Graham arrived, I was trying to crawl backward through a field of scattered paper. He moved between us, but he did not reach for me. Summer, an ambulance is coming. She hurt our baby. He went very pale. There is no baby, he said. I screamed at him until the paramedics came. At Harbourview, a doctor examined the bruise on my hip and ran tests. Graham waited outside because I refused to let him into the room. A hospital social worker named Eleanor Alvarez sat beside me while the doctor explained that I was not pregnant. The ultrasound is at home, I said. Do you know when it was taken? Elena asked. Recently. How recently? I could not answer. Graham gave the hospital a copy of my healthcare directive. It named him as my proxy if I could not make a particular decision, but Elena made one thing clear. A diagnosis does not erase every decision you make, she said. We're talking to you because this is your care. The words made me cry harder than sympathy would have. The ultrasound was 6 years old. Graham sent a photograph of the full page. It carried my name, a date, and a note from an obstetrician. Pregnancy loss at 9 weeks. I remembered none of it. He could have changed the date, I told Elena. She did not argue. What would help you feel safe tonight? A room he can't enter unless I say so. She arranged one through the hospital's observation unit. Graham stayed in the hallway anyway. 2 days later, I chose to return home with a visiting nurse and Elena's direct number saved in my phone. The decision lasted until I saw strangers carrying boxes out of the upstairs room. It had once been a nursery. A wooden crib stood half dismantled. Tiny yellow clothes filled an open carton. Above the window, one nail remained where a mobile had hung. Claire stood in the centre of it all. Get out of my house. My name is June, she said. June Park. I have known you since sophomore year. You are sleeping with Graham. I am a lesbian, Summer. Convenient. She made a sound between a laugh and a sob. My wife will be fascinated to hear that. She took out her phone and showed me a wedding photograph. Claire, or June, stood beneath strings of garden lights beside a red-haired woman in a green suit. I was between them, raising a champagne glass and laughing. You edited our wedding film, she said. You made me promise never to use the song from Time's Titanic. Anyone can edit a photograph. I know, you taught me. Her answer was impatient, not gentle. I trusted it more than the softness everyone used when they wanted me to cooperate. I searched the boxes for the felt star that had hung above the crib. I remembered sewing it by hand, though I could not remember the child it was meant to protect. Where is the star? June looked toward the open balcony door. I put the mobile in the donation bin. I ran downstairs. Summer, wait. The rain had stopped, but the stone around the backyard pool was slick. The donation bin was empty. Wind had scattered packing paper across the garden, and something yellow floated near the deep end. I stepped toward it. June caught my elbow. It's not the star. Come inside. Let go. You asked us to clear the room. You keep saying I asked for things. Because you did. On a good day, with Dr. Patel and a lawyer in the room, you made a plan, and now Graham changes it every time you get upset. Because he loves me. June's exhaustion finally broke through. He needs sleep. He needs help. You need more than one terrified man pretending love makes him a memory care unit. The sentence hit harder than her hand could have. I pulled away. My heel slid off the wet coping. June reached for me, lost her balance, and fell into the pool. For one confused second, I thought she had jumped. Then she grabbed my sleeve and dragged me in after her. Cold water closed over my head. When I surfaced, Graham was running across the lawn. He dove in wearing his coat. June was choking and clawing at the wall, so he pushed her toward the steps first. I saw his hands on her waist. I saw him choose her. Then my foot slipped from the ledge, and Graham caught the back of my shirt before I went under again. At the hospital, my memory kept only one frame: Graham holding Claire while I drowned. By December, I had collected enough recordings to tell myself a complete story. Graham wanted Claire. He needed me cooperative until Stillwater went public. He used my diagnosis to erase every objection and called it care. The story had gaps, but so did every documentary before the final cut. After the pool incident, I agreed to return home because it felt less frightening than another unfamiliar ward. Graham hired 2 professional care partners. He moved into the guest room and knocked before entering mine. He attended caregiver training. He put a small sign beside every light switch and photographs on the kitchen cabinets to show what was inside. He also cancelled the trial stay at Harbour House that my earlier care plan had scheduled. I found the email on our shared computer. Family has decided to continue care at home. Family meant Graham. I wrote the message on my wrist so I would not forget. The night before Stillwater's public listing, the company hosted a founder reception aboard a chartered ferry on Elliott Bay. Dr. Vowtale had advised against the noise and unfamiliar setting. Graham tried to stay home with me. I insisted on going. The red camera held a clip in which an earlier version of me said, "If I can still choose, I want to stand beside the company I built when it opens to the public." Graham treated that recording like a commandment. Neither of us stopped to ask whether a 3-year-old wish fit that night's confusion. The ferry remained inside the bay, moving slowly beneath a cold, clear sky. Stillwater's first employees hugged me. Investors thanked me for inventing the continuity system that had become the company's first product. I smiled for photographs and wondered how many of them would testify that I seemed perfectly capable. Before dinner, the chief financial officer invited me to speak. Graham started to decline for me, caught himself, and looked over. "Do you want to?" he asked. I did. At the microphone, I remembered the first line of the speech and none of the second. 100 faces waited. The bay shifted beyond the windows. "Stillwater began because I lost a hard drive," I said at last. "Graham will tell you there was a grander strategy. There was not. I lost 3 days of interview footage and shouted until he built a better system." The oldest employees laughed. The sound gave me enough time to find the next sentence on the card in my hand. I finished to a standing ovation. For 5 bright minutes, I was not the founder with dementia. I was simply the founder who had remembered her speech. Graham stayed close without touching me. "Too loud?" he asked. "I'm fine. We can leave." "You would like that." His phone rang. He glanced at the screen. "Who is it?" "The jeweler." "Why is a jeweler calling tonight?" Graham hesitated, then walked toward the stern where he could hear better. I followed far enough to catch one sentence. "If she says yes when we get back, I'm marrying her. Claire?" He planned to marry Claire after Stillwater had the photographs it needed from me. I went to the passenger deck and removed my shoes. I placed them neatly beside the rail, wrapped my yellow scarf around the top bar, and called 911. "My name is Summer Ellis," I whispered. "Graham Voss brought me onto a boat against my will. I'm hiding near the service stairs." Then I slipped into the dark space behind a maintenance door and waited for the police to ruin him. It took Graham 4 minutes to notice I was gone. I heard my name travel through the ferry. Music stopped. Crew members searched each deck while the captain turned toward the nearest terminal. Someone found my shoes. Someone else saw the scarf moving over black water. Graham shouted at the crew to lower the rescue boat. "We're turning around," a deck officer told him. "Do not go over that rail. She can't swim. Sir, there are professionals coming." I left my hiding place in time to see Graham climb over the stern. "Graham!" He did not hear me. He jumped into Elliott Bay. The rescue crew pulled Graham from the water in under 7 minutes. It was long enough. His heart stopped once on the ferry and again in the emergency department. By sunrise, machines were breathing for him at Harbourview. Police found me sitting on a bench at the terminal with my shoes in my lap. Officer Dana Ruiz listened to my kidnapping report, then asked Elena from the hospital to join us. No one treated me like a criminal. No one agreed that I was right. The ferry's security footage showed me walking on board beside Graham, signing the event release myself, and telling 3 people I had fought for the right to attend. My call was real. My fear had been real. The kidnapping was not. I heard him say he was marrying her. I insisted. Elena crouched in front of me. "Summer, who is she?" I tried to picture Claire. Dark hair, my tortoiseshell clip, a hand around a medicine cup. Her face would not hold still. Officer Ruiz returned my phone and the red camera. "Mr. Voss's attorney gave us access to his contact list. There is no Claire Dawson. Do you know June Park?" My laminated cards said I did. At 8 that morning, I searched my reminders for Graham's name. One had been pinned by an earlier version of me. If Graham is hurt, if you think he betrayed you, or if police are involved, open full cut, watch in order. I unlocked my phone with my thumb. The home screen contained one folder I had never opened. The folder was named Full Cut, Start Here. The first video was dated 3 years earlier. I sat beside Graham in Dr. Patel's office, still wearing the blunt black bangs I had cut for my last film. I looked frightened and very young. "I have young-onset Alzheimer's disease," Video Summer said. "It took 14 months and 3 wrong diagnoses to get here. I am recording this while I understand what it means." Graham held my hand without speaking. My memory may lie to me. Fear may feel like evidence. If that happens, don't tell me none of my feelings are real. Slow down. Show me the full recording. Give me time. She lifted a binder toward the camera. "I signed a healthcare directive. Graham is my first proxy. June Park is my alternate. Neither document gives them permission to frighten me, force medication, or decide everything while I can still decide for myself." Graham looked straight at the lens. Understood. The 2 people in that recording believed they understood. Watching them, I could see how little either of us had imagined. The next recordings rebuilt my life in order. June was my college roommate, my documentary producer, and the person who introduced me to her wife at their wedding. I had given her the tortoiseshell clip during a drunken gift exchange years ago. Claire Dawson had dated Graham for 1 semester in college. She moved to Vermont before Graham and I met. My mind had borrowed her name from an old photograph and placed it over any woman I feared losing him to. The restaurant receipt was mine. The theatre tickets were ours. We had attended the movie, left halfway through because I panicked in the dark, and eaten pancakes at midnight instead. The jeweler's call on the ferry had been about our rings. In an email sent that afternoon, Graham had written that he wanted to ask me again after the listing, privately. and would accept whatever answer I gave him that day. His confidence on the phone sounded arrogant. The email sounded like the man in our old garage. The ultrasound came from the pregnancy we lost 6 years earlier. In one video, I stood inside the nursery with my palm resting on the empty crib. "If I start believing the baby is still coming," I told the camera, "please pack this room, keep the felt star. I made Graham promise." I stopped the video. He had kept the nursery for 6 years because every attempt to change it broke me again. And when he finally followed my plan, June had thrown away the one object I asked them to save. The archive proved that many of my accusations were delusions. It also proved I had been hurt in ways my illness did not invent. I spent the day watching the archive in a family consultation room outside Graham's intensive care unit. Memory is a bad editor. It keeps the reaction shot and throws away what caused it. The pool footage showed June grabbing me before I slipped. It showed both of us falling. Graham pushed June toward the steps because she was choking, then turned and caught me. He never shoved me. The audio captured what June said before the fall. Her cruelty existed on the recording, separate from everything I had imagined. After the accident, Graham removed June from my care team. He confronted her about the felt star and the things she had said. She apologized in a video I had refused to watch. "I was tired and angry," June said to the camera. "That does not excuse talking about you as if you were a burden standing in the next room. I am sorry. I will not come back unless you ask." At the birthday dinner, I had refused my medication. June had pushed. Graham had let her. Another recording showed him alone in our kitchen afterward. "I said she'd forget," he told the camera. "The second it came out, I heard what I had become. I used tomorrow's memory loss to excuse what we did to her tonight." He covered his mouth and stood there for a long time. He recorded the apology, then cancelled Harbour House anyway. The final file was only 4 days old. Graham sat on the floor outside my locked bedroom. "I keep telling everyone she chose home," he said. "She did, once. Then she chose the trial program. I cancelled because I couldn't stand the thought that she might be calmer without me." He rubbed both hands over his face. "That isn't a care plan. It's panic with better furniture." The screen went black. For 2 days, Graham remained sedated while doctors treated the damage caused by the cold and the time his heart had stopped. I slept in a family waiting room with the red camera zipped inside my coat. June brought me clean clothes and left them with Elena instead of asking to see me. Late on the 3rd afternoon, a nurse told me Graham was awake. I stood outside his room until he opened his eyes. His lips were cracked. A warming blanket covered him to the chest, and there were red marks where the rescue equipment had pressed into his skin. "Summer," he whispered. I sat beside him but did not take his hand. "Why did you jump? I thought you were in the water." "The crew told you to wait. I heard them. You could have died." His eyes filled. "I know. That was your decision, not mine." He nodded once. "I watched the full archive," I said. "You didn't cheat on me." Relief moved across his face, then stopped when he saw mine. "But you did use my illness against me. You let June force medicine. You cancelled the program I chose. You treated recordings of my old choices as permission after I changed my mind. I shouldn't, no." His fingers twisted in the edge of the blanket. "I kept saying I was protecting you. Mostly, I was terrified of going home and finding a house where you didn't live." He did not add an excuse. "I love you," I said. "That is not the same as giving you every decision." "I know. You didn't know yesterday." "No." I put my red camera on the table between us. "Then we're making a new plan." Graham spent 11 days in the hospital. Stillwater postponed its listing. then proceeded without him after the board appointed an interim chief executive. The company survived. Public markets were less romantic than Graham had imagined and less vindictive than I had feared. During those 11 days I met with Dr. Patel, Elena, a disability rights attorney, and a care coordinator who had never worked for Graham. They spoke to me alone before they spoke to anyone else. Some decisions were already too complicated for me on a bad day. On a clear afternoon, I could still explain where I wanted to live, what frightened me, and why. Dr. Patel asked me to describe Harbour House in my own words. She asked what I expected to gain, what I would give up, and what alternatives I had considered. I forgot the care coordinator's name twice, but I understood the decision. Capacity isn't a prize you win forever, or a light that is simply on or off, Eleanor told Graham afterward. We assess the decision in front of us and support Summer as much as possible. He wrote the sentence down. I chose a 90-day trial at Harbour House, a small residential program across the Sound with a wing for younger adults with memory disorders. I revised my instructions. No medication hidden in food. If I refused something non-urgent, staff would step back and try again later. No company events unless I agreed that day, and my care team believed the setting was safe. No photographs or public statements about my diagnosis without written approval from my attorney. Graham remained my healthcare proxy, but Elena became the person who would check whether my own voice had been heard first. And no one, including Graham, could enter my room or touch me after I said no. He read every page from his hospital bed. "What about visits?" he asked. 30 days without you." His jaw tightened. "I need to learn whether Harbour House works for me," I said, "not whether you can make it bearable." He looked toward the rain on the window. 30 days. After that you can visit if I agree when you arrive. A video from last year doesn't get to consent for me today. Okay. I took the silver ring from his property bag. Up close, it was not ugly. 2 uneven lines crossed the band like strands of film taped together. I designed this? On a napkin, at 3 in the morning. That sounds like me. He reached beneath his gown and drew a chain from around his neck. A second ring hung from it, smaller than his and set with a grey diamond. "You made a pair," he said. "I did not put it on. Keep it until I ask." Graham closed his hand around the ring. "I will. On my first night at Harbour House, I recorded a new file. My name is Summer Ellis. I chose this place. Graham did not abandon me here, and he is not allowed to take me home just because one of us cries." I considered the lens. When he visits, ask yourself how you feel while he is in the room. The past can introduce him. It cannot answer for you. Harbour House did not cure me, but it gave my days a shape that did not depend on Graham holding every edge together. Breakfast was at 8. Art studio opened at 10. On Tuesdays, I helped other residents edit short audio histories for their families. I could no longer manage a full documentary timeline, but I still knew when a story needed room tone and when a microphone was too far from the speaker. I made friends with a former high school principal named Denise, who hid sugar packets in her sleeves and denied it while the evidence spilled onto the floor. Some mornings I packed my suitcase because I thought my mother was coming. She had been dead for 9 years. Some afternoons, I knew exactly why I was there. The staff did not argue me out of grief. They offered tea, walked with me, and asked whether I wanted to call someone. I still hated parts of the place. The mattress was too firm. A staff member named Colton called everyone young lady until Denise threatened to file a complaint on behalf of all women living and dead. The coffee tasted like wet cardboard. Once, an alarm sounded when I tried to leave through the garden gate, and I shouted until my throat hurt. The director did not tell me. I should be grateful. She reviewed the incident with me the next morning and changed my walking schedule so I had more time outside the secured courtyard. It was care, not paradise. That made it easier to trust. On day 31, Graham waited in the lobby. I did not know him. He looked thinner than the man in my photographs. A pale scar crossed his chin from the ferry rescue. He held no flowers, no camera, and no paperwork that said I had loved him before. "I'm Graham," he said. "May I sit with you?" I studied him. "Are you the one who jumped off the boat?" "Unfortunately." That was stupid. "Exceptionally." I liked that he did not defend himself. We sat in the art room. I showed him how to fold a paper frog from a square of green paper. He made one perfectly on his first try. "Show off," I said. He unfolded it and deliberately did the next one wrong. "That's worse." "I'm struggling to find the appropriate level of competence." By lunch, we had filled the table with crooked frogs. When he stood to leave, sadness crossed his face so quickly he probably thought I had missed it. "Do I know you well?" I asked. "Very well." "Did I love you?" He took his time. "Often," he said. "Not every minute." That sounded more believable than a promise of forever. I let him visit again the next Saturday. Over the following months, Graham learned to arrive without expecting the woman from the week before. Sometimes I kissed him. Sometimes I asked him to leave after 10 minutes. Once I accused him of stealing my red camera, which was sitting in my lap. On another visit, I remembered our entire first date, but could not remember how to button my coat. Graham waited while I tried. When I finally handed it to him, he fastened the buttons without saying that he could have done it sooner. One Saturday, he brought lemon cake. I asked why there were no candles. "You once drowned them with sparkling water," he said. I laughed, even though I did not remember doing it. He left when I asked. He came back when I invited him. In April, Harbour House held a screening of the audio histories we had made. Graham sat in the back row. June came with her wife and remained near the door until I waved her inside. We were not repaired, but we had begun. My piece was called Tyne's 12 Summers. It opened with the sound of a garage door rattling upward in 2013. A younger version of me laughed behind the camera while Graham swore at a printer. Then came rain against our first apartment window, the clink of forks in a midnight diner, and my voice asking him what kind of birthday cake he wanted. "Lemon," he answered, in every year I had managed to record. The final track contained 40 seconds of silence from the day Dr. Vowtale gave us my diagnosis. I had once planned to cut it. This time I left it in. Halfway through the screening, I remembered Graham as more than a feeling someone had described or a man on an identification card. I remembered the garage, his burned coffee, and the night he proposed with a ring I had drawn myself. I turned around. He was already watching me. "Hi," I said. His expression broke. "Hi, Summer." June approached after the lights came up. She held a weather-stained felt star in both hands. "I found it under the hedge after the pool," she said. Graham kept it in the archive box. I should have asked before touching anything in that room. The stitches were uneven. I recognized my work without remembering making it. "Do you know who I am today?" June asked. "You're June." She let out a breath. "I also know you hurt me," I said. "And I hurt you. Both are true. I don't know what to do with that yet." "You don't have to do anything." She gave me the star and returned to her wife without asking for a hug. Later, I hung it above the desk where residents recorded their stories. It no longer belonged to a nursery that existed only in pieces. It marked a room where I still made things. We went outside after the screening. Sunlight flashed on Puget Sound, and the ferry crossings looked harmless from a distance. "Do you have the ring?" I asked. Graham reached under his shirt and removed the chain. Both silver bands hung from it. He placed mine in my palm. "Are you asking me to marry you?" I said. "No." I raised an eyebrow. "I want to," he admitted. "But today you asked for the ring." "That's all I'm answering." I slid it onto my finger. "Good answer." That afternoon, we recorded a new video together. "My name is Summer Ellis," I told the camera. "The man beside me is Graham Voss. I have loved him across 12 summers, but you do not owe him a 13th. Ask whether you feel safe. Ask whether he listens when you say no. Ask whether you want him to stay." I looked at Graham. "Anything to add?" "I like lemon cake." Vital medical history. The next morning, I did not know who he was. Graham met me in the garden with 2 coffees and no wounded look when I failed to say his name. "I'm Graham," he said. "May I walk with you?" The silver ring on my hand felt familiar, though I could not remember why. I looked at the path, the bright water beyond the trees, and the man waiting for my answer. "You can walk beside me," I said. So he did.